Good morning, Mike Dickson from AXR. How are you, sir?
Morning, Pete. Very well, thanks. In this beautiful, wintry, sunny, but crisp morning in Sydney.
Mate, it's very crisp in Melbourne. I tell you,
Yeah.
I've been out and had my coffee, put my big jacket on. It's perishing out there. And mate, you tell me this is already your third Zoom of the day. That's a pretty full on morning thus far.
Yeah, normally Fridays aren't that busy. I try and get a game of golf for Friday morning. I'm playing tomorrow instead, so I've stacked it up with calls. Yeah, so that's all good.
You're cramming it all in. Good
Yeah.
start. So you wouldn't have had a chance to go on one of these famous 4 minute K runs of yours, Mike.
Not yet, but I have got a run planned over lunchtime, so that is happening today. I'll be out to Garrigal National Park, I think today, which is a pretty cool spot. See some wallabies and wildlife and amongst
Yeah.
it. It's I love it. It's great.
How important has running been to you during this period?
Look, I think really important. I've actually bizarrely been posting a bit on LinkedIn about it as well because um, I build it into my day,
Yeah.
running or the gym or some form of exercise. But I do something probably every day, and it really helps me just clear the mind. Um, People often ask, "What do you think about when I'm running?" And I think not much. I do.
Yeah.
I generally don't. It's a really good head clearer for me, and it does just give me energy as well. So
Oh,
uh, I'm not a big early morning runner. I typically go at lunchtimes, and it just kind of gets me through the afternoon. Love it.
exercise is so important,
Mm.
so important. And I think particularly now, we need that thing to help our mind. But I also
Yeah.
think I, I realize I'm talking to a chap of a similar mature vintage to myself. I think the older you get, the more important exercise becomes. Um, just keeps the brain ticking over, Mike. Anyway, digress. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being involved in Recruitment Journeys, the podcast series. This is series two. Very quick explanation of what it's all about. I know you've listened, Mike, because you've been kind enough to make a few kind comments here and there. But Recruitment Journeys, as it says on the tin, we speak to chosen, selected recruitment identities from the Australian recruitment industry. And we talk about your recruitment journey from A to Z and a couple of bits in between, in the hope to, if anybody's listening to your story, Mike, in the hope to inspire, educate, motivate. People might look at what you're doing now and say, look, that's something that I'd like to do, something like somebody I'd aspire to be down the tracks. That's the purpose of the podcast, Mike. Thank you for being involved. I've already given the listeners and the viewers a little bit of an introduction as to who you are, but in your own words, would you mind telling us who Mike Dickson is, please?
Sure, Pete. Mike Dickson and I lead the new sales and marketing business for AXR, a specialist accounting and finance recruitment business in Sydney. Been around for 20 years, but this is their first venture out of that space, and loving it. Yeah, so 4 months in to running the new, freshly minted AXR sales and marketing business.
Yeah, and we'll come back. Obviously, we'll come back to how this has all happened in a moment. But have you known the two Gregs for quite a few years?
Yeah, I have. So Greg Madden and Greg O'Shea, the founders, I've known them since I've been in Sydney. I moved to Sydney in January 2013 from New Zealand, and got to know the guys very quickly when I was in my previous role, 6 Degrees. So I used to refer them finance roles, and they would refer me roles. So we kind of grew up, got to know each other, had a good working relationship.
Perfect. Great. So, Mike, the concept of today's discussion is, because we do need to. I mean, we're going to focus on a certain part of your career, and we're going to talk about what you're doing right now. Obviously, you've been in recruitment for many, many years, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what you're doing right now is what a lot of recruiters are finding themselves doing. Some by choice, some, if I'm being honest, not by choice. And that's starting up a recruitment business in the middle of a global pandemic, potentially the worst recession the world has ever known. So some people think this is the perfect time to start up a business. Some people think it isn't. You're doing it though, so I'm very keen to find out what your experience has been like thus far. But let's just go back in time first, Mike. I asked this same question of everybody: how and why did you break into the wonderful world of recruitment?
I think my story is pretty familiar, Pete. I had a business degree, a kind of early career in marketing. Quickly realized that whilst I enjoyed marketing, back then, certainly financially, I wasn't going to make myself rich. I took a year out, went traveling around the world, and came back and walked into Michael Page's offices to look for a job in marketing, because that's what I did, even though I had a kind of, I wasn't in love with it. And they picked up on a few signals, and they PRC'd me, as they called it. I was seen as a potential recruitment consultant. Made me feel very special, as if it was such a rare thing to happen. Imagine me, a candidate, going in, and before I knew I was being offered a role there. And obviously, once I went through a bunch of interviews and started, I realized that it's pretty much par for the course. If you could, you had a decent education, a bit of something about you, some energy, then you were likely to be PRC'd. So I wasn't very special after all, but
mate, don't.
it got me in. And even then I thought, well, at least I can look out for the best jobs and place myself. But pretty quickly I found out I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's such a classic scenario, isn't it? I reckon 99% of people in recruitment got into recruitment that way. And I think I've mentioned to you before, it really annoys me because I had to fight tooth and nail to get into recruitment after many rejections. So yeah, my entry wasn't quite as smooth as yours, Mike. So you did Michael Page. You had a very chunky period with Hudson. So you did the corporate thing. Then you made the transition into medium-sized specialist recruitment firm with 6 Degrees. You were the general manager, the state director for New South Wales for 7 years.
Yep.
So super stable, strong tenured resume, and then you find yourself working in a smaller business. How did you see yourself? Because I'm not suggesting you were institutionalized at any point, Mike, but to go from the biggest businesses in the recruitment industry to a smaller privately owned business, is that something that you ever imagined would happen?
It's the opportunity to join something small or get involved in a startup has been presented, or I thought about it many times throughout my career. So, and some of the businesses I didn't join, I've gone on to do great things, and I kind of look back and think, why didn't I do that? But you can only make the best decision you can at a time. And when life in corporate is going well, and in previous roles at Page, and particularly Hudson, where I was getting bigger roles, more offices, more people, bigger salaries, more benefits. It's a really hard thing to walk away from, particularly when you've got a family and you think, well, I'm providing really well, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's good fun. The timing of working in something more startup orientated just never seemed to quite be right. But look, 6 Degrees, Pete, was 7 years of awesome fun, and I joined it. It was a lot smaller. My remit amongst the rest of the board at the time was we wanted to scale the business and grow it, and we did that pretty successfully over the 7 years I was there. And it did turn from what was a small medium-sized business to a large medium-sized business, and the business has aspirations to grow further, I believe, and with that comes you have to kind of run a business differently, and 6 Degrees had become more corporate and turned itself into more corporate business, and it had to, in terms of infrastructure. But it is I'd been in corporate businesses a long time, and I joined 6 Degrees to get out of corporate, and so I felt myself slipping a little bit into that space, that world again, which was not new for me. It wasn't exciting for me. I didn't. That wasn't so much fun, and I'd also reached a stage in life where my kids are a bit more grown up, and there was certainly a lot of some financial stability in my life. So I was able to make a decision quite confidently that it was time for me to do something new and maybe actually look at something much smaller and more agile and more nimble. So the timing was right, and also, 7 years and 6 degrees. Whilst the business had grown, it was time for somebody else to have a go as well, and so it was good timing for me. But actually, I think probably the right time for the business as well. So it was a very amicable parting. This time last year, when we actually made it happen, but this time last year we're in a very different world.
Well, yeah. So you've just couple of times there, you just used the phrasing, the timing was right or the timing wasn't right. You mentioned that when you were working in the corporates, you thought about starting up a new business a couple of times, but you said the timing wasn't right. But ironically, one might argue that the timing right now to start up a business couldn't be worse.
Yeah.
However, so let's break it down. So you parted company amicably with 6 Degrees last year. You obviously had discussions with Greg, the Gregs at AXR, and you decided to join in December 2019. Then you kind of honourably, respectfully sat out your non-compete clause and decided to launch the business in Feb. Is that correct?
March 16th.
March. Okay. So my question to you would be, March was when COVID hit, right? And I remember having a few conversations with friends and people in my network saying, what do you think about this coronavirus thing? And people were so dismissive of it, myself included. I thought it was stuff and nonsense. But it was March when I started getting interviews cancelled because of COVID. My clients were saying, we're just worried now. We're battening down the hatches.
Yeah.
That's scary for me in an established business with 15, 16 years under my belt. How did that feel for you, starting a brand new business, hearing about this storm looming over the AXR office?
Yeah, certainly wasn't what any of us had planned. I think I was in the office for 3.5 days before we closed it down. Yeah, I've been out of an office environment for 7 months, so I was just champing at the bit to get involved, and energy levels through the roof, and all these thought I put into my planning, phases I wanted to take the business through, measures of success, things I wanted to do. So we had to evolve that a lot as time has gone from March until now. So it was it definitely was a really challenging time, but I think for me, Pete, I'm building something not from nothing, because the AXR as a business has been around for 20 years. It's very successful. And the reason I picked AXR was it was an established brand. There was a lot of synergies. It wasn't quite a startup on my own. That was very much what I wanted to do, and I was measuring up a whole bunch of conversations I was having post leaving 6 Degrees about measuring, would I work for somebody else? Would I work in partnership with somebody else? Because what I wanted to do was start my own. But the reason I pumped for AXR was, one, I knew the guys really well. It felt like a really good synergy, and I could be very externally facing. I didn't have to worry about how do I build a brand from scratch, or a website, a CRM, which one do I pick? What do I do with terms, infrastructure? That was all in place. So it was a really, to my mind, it was going to accelerate me faster. That obviously, hasn't happened from lots of different reasons. Yeah. So it certainly has changed the direction a little bit, or changed the way in which I've got to measure success.
Yeah. And I'm really keen to dig into how you've had to adapt to the new market conditions. But again, going back to that kind of emotion when you realized that you weren't going to hit the ground running. How did you feel? Did you feel kind of disillusioned, or did it just make the fire burn brighter, or did you think about you must have been having some pretty in-depth and conversations with your loved ones and your wife? Did you think about turning away from AXR and go and get a nice, safe, comfortable salary in corporate? What was going through your mind?
Yeah. I did weigh up a lot of that, but bearing in mind I've been through a process weighing that all up under different circumstances. But I got to this point through a lot of logical thinking, and to my mind, this was albeit we're in the early stages of COVID or coronavirus as we used to call it. It was I could control the outcome to an extent. If I was a fat salaried person, that's a horrible phrase, but if I was a big salaried person running a business for somebody else, I was honestly, I probably think there'd be less control, because you're the one who's not, but even though you're running a business, if you're not owning the business, if you're not the one who's ultimately accountable, then it's somebody else who's going to be making the big decisions about the direction of the business, the you and your roles. I reckon I've been probably more exposed actually, and more at risk. I think when it was me, and albeit I'm working in partnership with the guys at AXR, I'm the one who's in control. So I'm the one who's making the decisions about what to do, what the goals are going to be, how we're going to measure success. And that to me is exciting. That was always the thing I wanted to have, which was that kind of control and accountability, and success or failure was going to be down to me, as it is in any role. But the mandate is mine. It's my goals that I'm setting, and so that wasn't going to change. I just had to really, really think my way through. The actual goals, the actual KPIs, the actual activities, the things I'm going to do to make this work, that I've got to think about those differently, because I can't just operate in the way I was going to operate. I can't do the things I was going to do, because that's I can't activate an amazing float strategy when that's not relevant at that period of time. So what else have I got to do? So I thought about it. I talked to I did talk to my wife. I did talk to Greg and Craig, but we agreed really early on, we're committed. So why pull the pin before we give it a go? We were so up for it I've got a reasonable amount of experience, and I do have a lot of confidence and self-belief. So I was good about myself.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, look, imagine. Look, it probably would have been a pretty easy cop out to go and chase the fat salary and just take the safe stroke risky option. But imagine the regret that you would have been living with down the track when the market turned. Okay, cool. So how did the business plan change? What did you sideline? Things like the float strategy. Can't do that. That's not relevant. What did you replace? What were you discarding? What were you replacing it with? What were the things that you were going to focus on as a COVID startup that would help?
Yeah. Look, so things around the basics of recruitment. So I think fundamentally, recruiting is around driving relevant activity that's going to be meaningful in the marketplace to derive an outcome, which is ultimately placing people in roles. So no matter what your business is, that's what you're there to do, and everything around it is setting that up. So, so the measures of the ultimate measure of placing people and revenue, it has to change, because you're not going to place as many people. You're not going to create the same revenue stream, which would then trigger other things such as my first hire, my second hire, entering different channels and markets. The things I want to do about growing a business, that just has to slow down. But it doesn't stop me growing the brand and developing the network and creating a point of difference in the marketplace. So it really forced me to think around, to me it was clear what I thought there was where I thought I could fulfill a bit of a gap in the market, and how I was going to do that. And actually, without having lots of assignments to work, I wish I had, Pete, but I didn't, and I'm still living off scraps. But without having be consumed by the intensity of recruiting, I was able to put a lot of energy into how do I bring that brand to life? What are the little measures of success going to be? And how do I do that in a meaningful way? So that's just not my ideas. I've got to make that relevant. I've got to think, how many conversations have I got to have with candidates and clients? So I've got to build up really strong networks, which I had to an extent, but I wanted to activate them and make them wider as well. So things like making sure that I was connected to more people on LinkedIn. So I had a really active connection strategy on LinkedIn. So I put on something like almost 2,000 new contacts in the first 4 weeks in my space, within the sales and marketing space in Sydney. I spoke to and connected with a large number of HR directors, sales directors, marketing directors, that to talk about what I was doing and to talk about what they were doing, what was their business facing into, and to try and derive an understanding of the market, so I could I could create things like market reports, updates, consolidate knowledge. People were thirsty to understand what was going on and how's everybody else coping with this. So how can I gather knowledge and connect people together to help them make better decisions in their business? So it's about, how do I support organizations? How do I support candidates? So by having lots and lots and lots of conversations, I set myself targets around how many conversations I wanted to have every day. I was able very quickly to build my profile, but actually really just ask questions about what's going on, so I could then create points of relevance and in a supportive way to that network. So I'm not just jumping into the network, I'm being supportive in that network, and that builds a platform for hopefully recruitment down the line.
Yeah. So and it becomes a case of I think the smart recruiters out there are doing what you're doing, which is we have to basically stop chasing the dollar, because there's no dollar to chase, and that's that sounds awful, but that's part of building a business and sustaining a business, and totally change our approach and our offering, and it becomes about just being there for our industry and talking to and providing a voice and a service to our industry, and just kind of wrapping a big arm around it to the best that you can. None of us have the level of platform that we truly want in our industry, but you just got to do your bit, right? To simply build and strengthen those relationships. So one, because it's the right thing to do, and two, because it'll pay back when the market turns. And I think so many recruiters are not seeing this as the opportunity to do that. But so it sounds like you are, and you possibly had no choice. It is what you have to do.
Yeah, it correct. I think it's about so I reckon, if I was to kind of look at it, I reckon I'm 4 months into the business. I'm probably 14 months into where I thought the brand would be. So I'm well ahead.
That's amazing.
Well ahead, and I'm probably only 6 weeks into where I thought the revenue would be. So it's really different, and you can't beat yourself up about that, because you just have to be conscious that it's another world. There's you can't ignore the fact you're there ultimately to build a business, and that's dollars. But I'm in a great position in terms of the partnership with AXR. I got myself into a good time of life where financially I'm reasonably stable, so I'm able to make decisions that are long term, as opposed to just running around panicking in the moment, which I get a lot of people are doing, but it's not going to get you going forward.
Mm.
And so to me, it's about thinking, well, how do I, do this in a really relevant, value-added way? So I look at, what a lot of recruiters have done, yourself included, Pete, on kind of trying to find that point of relevance, a point of support, whether it's things that you're doing on this podcast, or it's a content you're putting out on LinkedIn, or it's the way in which you're supporting your candidates, the clients. There's a desire within the client and candidate network to be supported. They want to
Yeah.
feel connected. So, you can ignore that, but why would you? But you've got to find out a way in which you can provide support, which is a little bit different. That's going to add value to them over time, and be consistent, and yes, be resilient, but keep going, because this is a time that if we stay with people through the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, we're going to be there with them. And I actually see in the last couple of weeks a real shift in where business leaders have got to in their mentality, but their businesses. I think we're not too far off. Not the market turning back to what it was. It's never going to be what it was, but the market shifting to a phase where opportunity to recruiters who can operate at a strategic level are going to present themselves.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. So I've probably spoken to, as I do every week, I probably speak to 20 different businesses a week, say. And my view in this last week, in almost every business I've spoken to, medium to large, would be we can't wait any longer. We can't build a business plan that is going to be a 3-year rolling plan with a 1-year activation, which is going to mean that we're going to review our capability mix, talent mix, and therefore recruitment is going to look like this. They can't be as formulaic as that, because their world they're operating in is shifting all the time, and from society down. So, but society is not going to stop shifting. So if society isn't going to stop shifting, how do you have a business that's going to maximize opportunities in a shifting society? And businesses have reached that point to say, look, if we sit on our hands for much longer, we're going to get beaten to the punch by bolder businesses out there. So we can't stop. We've got to stop sitting on our hands and start evolving our business to being able to twist and turn and pivot and spin and take advantage of whatever the opportunities are out there. And therefore, are we set up in the right way to do that? Do we have the right people in the right roles? And therefore, do we need to speak to people like me to add value to those conversations, because we might change some of the people around to create different roles or different structures. So it's starting to flow through to recruitment. We're not far off that. We really aren't. So stick in.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, look, yeah. I mean, I hear similar things in my industry, which is also your industry, the recruitment industry. I've had quite a lot of clients ring me and say, we are using this as it's similar to what you're saying, similar but different. We are using this as an opportunity to get good talent that we maybe not have got pre-COVID, and we're going to use that to bolster our recruitment sales teams and be ready to capitalize when the market turns. So similarly, businesses in recruitment land are thinking about the future. Touch wood.
Yeah.
Do you think, in a bizarre kind of way, when you go back to the point that you just made, that you're 14 months ahead in your branding strategy because of COVID, do you think one day you might look back almost grateful for this period of time that you're in right now?
Yeah, I'm really naturally optimistic. So I do. I do have moments of doubt when I kind of think, why isn't this working? Why am I not getting the assignments I thought I'd get, the business I thought I'd get? But but the majority of the time, I do look at this time and think, wow, the amount of effort and energy I've been able to put into business development and brand development, and the two are different, but they're very linked. is a blessing, because I am way ahead. You know, I've been very fortunate to be able to create some programs that have really landed well in the marketplace, where I've got, an example. I've got a thing called the Sales Director Incubator, which is a really cool way of me interviewing leading sales directors about their career journeys. I wonder where I got that from, Pete. Doing it in a webinar format, so helping future leaders understand how to have better career conversations, how to improve their career decisions. My biggest frustration as a recruiter is seeing candidates who don't realize their potential. They're in a role which they're stuck, and they should have gone further, and they haven't. And it's typically because they've been poorly advised and not advised well on the career decisions and career conversations they've got to have to maximize their opportunities. So if I can help raise the bar across a large group of people to have better career conversations, then that's awesome. That's really adding value to the marketplace. And I've got this is the third session I've got next week, when I'm interviewing another sales director, and a live webinar format. We've got over 200 people registered now for the program.
Wow.
And it's growing every week. So I don't know where it's going to end up, but it's really cool. I've got 12 people lined up between now and Christmas. And every interview is different, the journey is different, and the theme is different. But the response I've had back from people on the program, including HR directors who are volunteering their guys to say, get on, because you can't get this advice any other way. This is really, really interesting and useful. So that's come from watching what's going on, what you're doing, what other people are doing in the market, understanding where I think the opportunity is, because I do think there's an issue with career decision making and career conversations. It's a poorly served part of HR. And if I can help plug that gap relevantly in my marketplace, then there's a lot of benefit to all the key groups I'm interested in, which is HR, sales directors, and future sales leaders. So it works really well. Now, I might have got there, in time. I think it's a nice idea. I had it in the back of my head. It's something AXR does within the finance community in a different way. So I've evolved it. But I've got there a lot faster because I've got time to do it.
Yeah, it's the perfect COVID innovation strategy. It's I'm doing so many other things that I never would have dreamed that I would be doing, and they've all come as a result of COVID. But they're all rewarding in different ways. None of them are making me any money.
Yeah, I get brought down to earth with that very quickly when I have a conversation with my loved ones at the end of the day, and they know recruitment because they've been in my family obviously a long time, all their lives, and they say, "That's great, Dad. It sounds like you're doing really well. Who did you place today?" I'm saying, "Don't ask tough questions."
Yeah, keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
But honestly, COVID. There's so many silver linings to COVID. And I remind myself of them every day. I think we have to, otherwise we'll all end up pretty depressed. So, mate, going back to the concept of the podcast, it's all about educating, motivating, and inspiring. And Mike, your story is inspiring. You're grabbing COVID by the scruff of the neck, and you're having a red hot crack. What advice would you give to fellow recruiters out there who might be starting a new recruitment business next week? And I dare say there's more of them than we realize. There's so many new startups popping up. What advice would you give to somebody starting next week?
I think some of the advice I'd give would be the same I'd give whether it was COVID or not, but I'll let me try and split it into two, because I think there's also some specific advice in terms of what I've learned through the last 4 months. But so first of all, I think the most successful recruiters that I've ever worked with have been the ones that have got absolute clarity in where their value is in the marketplace, and typically that comes from what is their niche. where are they going to be famous? Where do they want to be the best known in the market for recruiting X type of people and Y type of market? So those who are tempted to run down 100 alleyways at once to try and chase a dollar because every dollar is a good dollar, will never get as far as those who are laser focused on a marketplace, and may take them a little bit longer to develop their revenue in the early days, but they'll always be more successful in time. So be really clear on what your niche is, what your specialization is. First of all.
So does that mean? Sorry to interrupt. Does that mean you are? I'm going to use the word that everybody hates. Does that mean you're anti-pivot?
No, I think you've got to pivot, and it is the horrible word, but I think pivot's important in terms of how you make decisions, and so when we come on to the COVID piece, so be clear on where your value is going to be, but how are you going to deliver that value to the marketplace is, I think, how you pivot. Because, so you might set some goals around activity that you think is going to derive a result, but actually you've got to decide quickly if that activity is not working in the marketplace, possibly because of COVID, because what you're doing isn't as relevant as you thought it was going to be, then change the activity, do something different, but don't change your strategy. So don't change your goals in terms of you want to be famous in a particular marketplace. Now, if your marketplace is dying at its arse, then don't pick that market. You pick a market that you think has got some value in it, that you can be successful, that you've scoped it and understood it, first of all. But the pivot comes down to, I think, what you're doing, Pete. So in times of COVID, for me, that was not following the same activity plan on driving presence through I just used the example of float strategy. I think you can still float in this marketplace, but I wasn't going to get the same number of jobs on. I wasn't going to be sending out the same numbers of CVs. I wasn't going to be converting CVs to the number of interviews I'm used to, or winning the number of retainers that I like to win to ensure my pipeline. Those things were just not going to be there. So rather than get really depressed because I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, I had to set different goals that would enable me to still achieve, but still contribute to the strategy. So to me, it was, well, let's accelerate the brand, and accelerate the BD in a way that's relevant to the client marketplace. And if I can do the brand and the BD together, which I think I've done, then great, and the revenue will come in time, I hope. So it's being, I don't know, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does. Totally. It does. And, the small wins part kind of resonates. It's, I think, if I get an interview nowadays, I'm like jumping up and down and celebrating, even though I know that interview will amount to probably nothing. But yeah, I think small wins and reassessing your goals. Totally. Yeah. No, I get it. It all makes sense. All right, sir. Well, thank you so much. What does what's the plan for 2021? Where do you think? I know this has dragged you back a while, but I'm sure you still got lofty ambitions and goals for AXR sales and marketing. What does 2021 look like for you?
Yeah, my goals are they're not super lofty, to be honest. I selfishly, one of the reasons I created this environment at AXR was, whilst I love leading businesses, and I've been, with a corporate 6 degrees, been very fortunate to lead some large teams or to scale up businesses. It's great. I love the act of recruiting. I love getting inside a business, understanding what they're about, and helping them make great decisions on what their talent strategy should be and who they should recruit, and then being able to go and connect that meaningfully to inspire someone to change career and take a different role. I think I see recruitment as a really exciting thing if you personally connect to it, which I do. So this environment I've created enables me to be front and center in doing that. And I don't want to create a business where I'm running teams of dozens of people that mean that I can't do that anymore. So I want that to be a major part of my life. But I do have ambitions, to grow the business. But I want to grow it to a handful of people who share my passion, share the belief that what we do, if it's done really well, it adds a lot of value. Now, to do it really well, you've got to be very quality focused. You've got to be reasonably kind of smart in terms of consulting and with organizations and with people. So it's so I recruit people who want to work with me, who are see recruitment as more than a transaction. It's actually a really exciting thing they enjoy doing, and building a high performance team of no more than 5 or 6 people. And it might take me, goodness, it might take me 3 or 4 years to get there, Pete. Not the 18 months I maybe had in mind, but that's still the ambition. So at the end of 21, if it's me, I'm enjoying myself and I'm making some money, great. I really hope that I've done well enough that I've at least hired one or two people, Pete, and you've been more than happy to supply me with good talent.
If it's just you by the end of 2021, Mike, at least you still be able to go on your lunchtime runs without feeling guilty.
That'll still happen.
It'll still happen regardless.
Yeah, that'll still happen no matter what.
Well, mate, well done for digging deep and innovating and making things happen. I hope that these innovations that you've implemented, like the sales director incubator, I hope you continue with those things once the market turns. I think that's the key. I keep saying to myself, the stuff that I'm doing now, I've got to keep doing it when the market turns. Otherwise, what was the point? Because it does serve a purpose. So, mate, you are one of the good guys of the recruitment industry. So I'm delighted that this is still going well for you despite market conditions. And thank you for being involved. And I look forward to catching up when all this excuse my French, this shitstorm passes over.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. We've all got to keep going. We'll get there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, then. Okay.